lifestyle was the role of nitric oxide. And for the bodybuilders, for people interested in fitness, those are very popular pre-workout ingredients. And in my own, I have citrulline malate, I have beetroot powder, and other. I consume a lot of nitric oxide precursor foods. So I'm curious if you can elaborate on that and where the health and wellness and medical industry went wrong with nitric oxide.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I start the book on methylene blue. Basically, the idea is that you need to first understand nitric oxide and its role, since we've been kind of so misinformed about it by society before you can understand how and appreciate how methylene blue works, because methylene blue is a nitric oxide inhibitor. So there are a lot of cardiologists, some of whom have reached out to me and said, I've been prescribing, nitric oxide promoting drugs for many years, and I'm ready to change. Your chapter on nitric oxide has convinced me otherwise. So that was really hopeful to hear, actually. But yeah, so doctors, medical professionals, nurses, I think, and even, bodybuilders, like you're saying, we're all taught that nitric oxide is this glorious protective substance. And that is because based solely on the fact that it dilates blood vessels. And it does dilate blood vessels, but the problem is that in excess, it actually does the opposite. And it turns out nitric oxide is basically released in an emergency situation when the metabolism isn't working to dilate blood vessels to prevent hypoxia. So scientists tend to see, anything that dilates blood vessels is good, because in coronary heart disease and heart attacks, the blood vessels are constricted. So this must be a good thing, but they failed to see the bigger picture here. It turns out that carbon dioxide, which is produced when the metabolism is working well, it's thyroid glucose into the cell, into the mitochondria, and then comes out of that are water, ATP, and carbon dioxide. That's a basic formula. And so a high level of CO2 does a couple things. It does what nitric oxide does, but it does it better. It dilates blood vessels, and it also shuttles oxygen directly into cells. So in my book, Cancer the Metabolic Disease Unraveled, I talk about carboxy therapy as one of the ways that has been studied to treat cancer and various things. And that's basically the injection or even inhalation of carbogen, which is 95% oxygen or 95% air with 5% added CO2. And so adding that little bit of CO2 to a hyperbaric chamber will make it very, very good for you. But if you use 100% oxygen, just like when doctors administer 100% oxygen, that's one of the more popular ways that they kill people, because what that does is pushes CO2 out of the body, inhibits your body's ability to use oxygen, which is kind of ironic, because that's their goal when they're given so much O2. You'd think that would help, but it actually inhibits it. So CO2 is the primary vasodilator. Nitric oxide is very misunderstood. It's been implicated there's a paper called the nitric oxide hypothesis of aging, inside which the scientists present a growing body of evidence that nitric oxide is a primary mediator of aging and damage of all tissues in the body, including the brain and heart. So to wrap things up on that, unless you have any more questions.
Yeah, are there different types of nitric oxide?